For a few years, Wall Street believed risk had been defeated, that the future could be sold before it existed. That reality was just an adjustable detail, a number on a spreadsheet, a projection, a bet dressed as certainty. And there was a company that understood this better than anyone. It didn't sell energy. It sold belief. Belief that complexity was genius, that markets could see everything, that tomorrow's profits could be counted today. And for a while, everyone believed. Investors, analysts, regulators, the media. Until one morning, the screens went quiet, the story stopped working, and the people who believed in it realized they were holding paper, not wealth. December 2nd, 2001. The company was Enron, and it filed for bankruptcy. 20,000 jobs gone. Retirement accounts wiped out. Billions in shareholder value evaporated. But this isn't a story about fraud. Not really. Because Enron didn't just deceive the market. It collaborated with the market's hunger to believe. The market wanted growth, wanted innovation, wanted a story about the future, and Enron gave them one. About a world where energy was no longer a commodity, but a financial instrument, where pipelines didn't matter, only predictions, where the company that controlled expectations controlled everything. Enron didn't break the rules. It showed how fragile the rules were, how easily numbers could be bent, how willingly people accepted complexity as proof of sophistication. This isn't a story about one company. It's about a system that rewards belief over evidence, projections over reality, and confidence over truth. This is history's wealth, where money tells the story of power. In the beginning, there was gas, natural gas, flowing through pipelines, from producers to consumers, boring, predictable, profitable enough, but not exciting. And in the 1980s, America wanted excitement. For decades, energy markets were regulated, prices were controlled, routes were fixed, competition was limited. The government decided who could sell what to whom. It was stable, but a new generation of economists and politicians called it inefficient. The solution? Deregulation. Let the market decide. Let companies compete. Let prices float. In 1978, Congress passed the Natural Gas Policy Act, the beginning of deregulation. By the mid-1980s, energy companies could trade, negotiate, compete. And one company saw this as more than an opportunity. It saw it as a revolution. In 1985, two natural gas companies merged, Houston Natural Gas and Internorth. The new company was called Enron. Its CEO was Kenneth Lay, an economist, a Republican donor, a man who believed in markets, not as tools, but as systems of truth. Lay's philosophy was simple. Markets were perfect information processors. They knew everything, saw everything, predicted everything. The problem wasn't the market. It was the product. Gas was physical, tangible, limited by pipelines and storage. But what if it didn't have to be? In 1990, Enron hired a consultant from McKinsey, Jeffrey Skilling. He had an idea, a simple idea, with enormous implications. What if energy could be traded like stocks? What if Enron became a gas bank, matching buyers and sellers, hedging risk, creating markets where none existed? Lay loved it. Skilling joined Enron full-time, and the transformation began. Under Skilling's vision, Enron stopped being an energy company. It became a trading company. Energy was no longer molecules moving through pipes. It was contracts, futures, derivatives, abstract, financialized. And that abstraction was everything. Because once energy became abstract, it could be anything. A bet on the weather, a hedge against volatility, a projection of demand 20 years from now. And all of it could be bought, sold, traded, right now. They weren't building pipelines. They were building expectation. And Wall Street pays more for expectation than for reality. And that difference between expectation and reality is where disasters hide. Skilling believed the market was omniscient, that it incorporated all information instantly, that prices were always right, because they reflected everything everyone knew. This wasn't just economics, it was theology. The market was God, and Enron was its prophet. The company didn't just trade energy, it created belief in efficiency, in innovation, in the idea that complexity was sophistication, and Wall Street worshipped. By the mid-1990s, Enron was everywhere. trading electricity, water rights, bandwidth, weather derivatives, creating markets for things that had never been markets before. And the stock rose from $20 in 1998 to $90 in $2,000. Analysts called it a marvel. Fortune named it America's most innovative company. Year after year, 6 years in a row. But there was a problem. One nobody wanted to see. How exactly does Enron make money? Not in theory, in practice. What does it actually do? Where does the cash come from? Most investors didn't ask. Most analysts didn't know. And the few who questioned were dismissed. If you don't understand Enron, you're not smart enough. That was the implicit message. Complexity wasn't a red flag. It was proof of sophistication. And anyone who questioned it was simply too simple to understand. But behind the genius, something was being built, not a company. An illusion machine. The illusion had a name. Mark-to-market accounting. Traditional accounting is simple. You sign a contract to deliver gas for 20 years. You recognize revenue as you deliver, year by year. Steady, predictable, but Skilling saw that as backward-looking. Primitive. The market already knows the future, so why wait? Why not recognize all the profit now? They treated a promise like profit. They booked tomorrow's victory today and called it earnings. A 20-year contract became instant revenue, even if the project hadn't started, even if the assumptions were optimistic, even if the contract might fail. The profit was real. On paper, because the future was certain, because belief was treated like math. Wall Street loved it, because suddenly Enron's earnings weren't tied to boring things like delivering gas. They were tied to vision, to deals, to new markets. Every new contract was instant revenue, every projection was profit, and the stock rose, because the numbers looked good, on paper. But there's a flaw in selling the future. The future doesn't always cooperate. Projects fail, assumptions break, demand doesn't materialize. And when that happens, the profit that was booked years ago, it's gone, but it's already been counted, already been reported, already moved the stock price. So what do? You find another deal, bigger, to cover the loss, and another, until the company isn't growing, it's running. Enron's trading floor was legendary, young, aggressive, brilliant. Former employees describe 18-hour days, creating markets, finding inefficiencies, making bets. They weren't criminals. They were believers in the market, in the model, in the idea that they were smarter than everyone else. And Enron rewarded them. Massive bonuses, stock options, a culture that celebrated risk and punished doubt. Skilling implemented a performance review system. Employees were ranked, top performers got raises. Bottom performers were fired every year, no exceptions. It was called rank and yank. The message was clear: perform or leave, take risks or die. Never question. And the employees responded. They took bigger risks, made bolder projections, because caution was weakness, and weakness was fatal. But there was another machine, hidden, complex, beautiful in its architecture, terrifying in its purpose. They built rooms outside the building, places where debt could live, without appearing in the mirror. Those rooms were called special purpose entities, SPEs, technically independent companies, but in Enron's case, controlled. And this is how the mirror stayed clean. Enron had a problem, a failing investment, debt it wanted to hide. So it created an SPE, sold the asset to that SPE, booked a profit, and the debt disappeared. Off the balance sheet, invisible. The SPE borrowed money to buy the asset, often guaranteed by Enron. But that guarantee didn't appear on Enron's financial statements. It was buried. In footnotes, in complexity, in documents nobody read. The man behind the SPEs was Andrew Fastow, Enron's chief financial officer. Young, ambitious, brilliant at financial engineering, he created dozens of SPEs with names like LJM, Chuco, Raptors, each one designed to hide debt, to inflate profits, to keep the illusion alive. But Fastow wasn't just Enron's CFO, he also managed the SPEs. He negotiated on both sides of the deal, Enron's side and the SPE's side, and he profited personally, over $30 million. Later investigations revealed the scale of the conflict. It was so obvious it should have been impossible. But Enron's board approved it because the SPEs were necessary to keep the numbers working, to keep the story alive. Enron's financial statements were incomprehensible. Hundreds of pages, thousands of footnotes, references to entities that didn't make sense, transactions that seemed circular. But instead of raising alarms, this complexity was taken as proof of sophistication, of innovation, of genius. Nobody understood it, not the analysts, not the investors, not even most Enron employees, but everyone assumed someone else did. And that assumption was the foundation of everything. No one wanted to be the first to say, "I don't get it," because in that room, ignorance wasn't a gap. It was a crime. So they nodded, they bought, they upgraded belief into identity. Questioning Enron meant admitting you weren't smart enough. And in a world where intelligence was currency, that admission was professional suicide. So the silence spread, and the illusion grew. In 2000 and 2001, California experienced rolling blackouts. Energy prices spiked, hospitals lost power, families sweltered. The official story was supply and demand, deregulation gone wrong. But later investigations revealed market manipulation. Enron traders shut down plants to create scarcity. They moved power out of state to drive up prices. They exploited loopholes deliberately, and they joked about it. Recorded phone calls captured traders laughing about stealing money from California, about Grandma Millie paying through the nose. While people suffered, they celebrated because the market rewarded it. By 2001, Enron wasn't selling energy. It was selling inevitability. Belief that it understood markets better than anyone, that its models were accurate, that its complexity was sophistication. And the market believed because the stock kept rising, because the analysts kept recommending it, because questioning it meant admitting you didn't understand. And nobody wanted to admit that. But belief, no matter how widespread, eventually meets reality. The cracks appeared slowly, then all at once. In March 2001, a reporter named Bethany McLean published an article in Fortune. The title, "Is Enron Overpriced?" She asked a simple question. How exactly does Enron make money? She noted the opacity, the complexity, the vague answers from executives. Enron's leadership was furious. Skilling called her personally, called her reporting unethical, threatened consequences. But the question was out, and it planted doubt. In April 2001, during an earnings call, an analyst asked about Enron's cash flow, a basic question. Skilling snapped, called him an asshole, on a recorded line. It was shocking. CEOs don't lose control, not publicly, unless something is wrong. In August 2001, Jeffrey Skilling resigned after just 6 months as CEO. He cited personal reasons. No details, no explanation. Wall Street was stunned. Why would a CEO leave at the peak? Later testimony revealed Skilling knew. The illusion was unsustainable. The numbers didn't work. The SPEs were collapsing, and he wanted out before the explosion. A week later, an Enron vice president named Sharon Watkins sent an anonymous letter to Kenneth Lay, warning him. The SPEs were fraud. The company was hiding billions in debt. It would implode in a wave of accounting scandals. Lay ordered an investigation, but accounts suggest it was designed to fail. The law firm was told not to question the accounting. Watkins was ignored, and nothing changed. In October 2001, Enron announced it was restating earnings, going back years, adjusting for accounting errors, $586 million in hidden losses, billions in undisclosed debt. The stock plummeted from $33 to $15 in a day, and investors realized nobody knew what Enron was worth because nobody understood what Enron actually did. Once doubt entered, it spread. Credit agencies downgraded Enron's debt. Banks stopped lending. Partners stopped trading. Employees watched their retirement accounts evaporate because most of their 401ks were in Enron stock, and company rules prevented them from selling, while executives had already cashed out millions before the collapse. Inside Enron, there was no panic, just silence. Employees came to work, sat at desks, stared at screens, waiting for news, for answers, for something. But the executives said nothing, because there was nothing to say. The machine had stopped, and nobody knew how to restart it. Enron filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, the largest corporate bankruptcy in U.S. history at that time. 20,000 employees, out of work, retirement accounts, gone. And the question everyone asked, how did this happen? But the answer was simple. It happened because everyone wanted it to. Investors wanted growth, analysts wanted fees, employees wanted bonuses, executives wanted power, and Enron gave them all what they wanted, until it couldn't. The system needed faces to blame. It found them. Some went to prison, some walked, some died before the sentence. But the money, the incentives, those stayed alive. The company died. But the logic didn't. Enron was supposed to be a lesson, a warning, a line in the sand. But it wasn't. In 2002, Congress passed the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, the most significant financial reform since the Great Depression. CEOs and CFOs now had to personally certify financial statements. Criminal penalties for fraud increased. Auditor independence was strengthened. It was supposed to prevent another Enron. And in some ways, it did. Corporate fraud became harder. Executives became more cautious. But the deeper problem remained. Because Enron didn't invent anything, it just refined what already existed. The belief that complexity equals sophistication, that markets are always right, that the future can be sold as if it's already happened. And 6 years after Enron collapsed, the financial system did the same thing. Different products, different names, but the same logic. In 2008, the global financial system collapsed. Banks had created complex financial instruments, mortgage-backed securities, collateralized debt obligations, derivatives based on derivatives. Nobody fully understood them, but everyone bought them because they were rated 8AA, because the models said they were safe, because complexity was taken as proof of sophistication. Just like Enron, the mortgages failed, the securities collapsed, and the system nearly died. Banks that were too big to fail had to be bailed out by taxpayers, while executives kept their bonuses. The pattern repeated, except bigger, global, and the lesson still wasn't learned. Build complexity, call it genius, punish doubt. When it breaks, blame a few faces, then sell the next future. Enron followed this pattern. The 2008 crisis followed this pattern, and the system still follows this pattern. The wrapper changes. The incentive doesn't. The future is still being sold, just with new packaging. Complexity still protects. Belief still matters more than evidence, and those who question are still dismissed as not smart enough, as not sophisticated enough, as not understanding how it works. Enron proved something uncomfortable. The market isn't rational. It's emotional. It doesn't process information perfectly. It processes belief, and belief can be manufactured through complexity, through confidence, through the appearance of inevitability. Enron understood this better than almost anyone, and the market rewarded them until reality intruded. Enron didn't break the system. It revealed the system, a system where quarterly earnings matter more than long-term sustainability. Stock prices respond to narratives, not fundamentals. Executives are rewarded for short-term performance. Complexity protects fraud, and nobody wants to be the one who admits they don't understand. That system is still here, reformed, regulated, but fundamentally unchanged. Enron taught us that you can't sell the future forever. That complexity eventually collapses. That belief needs foundation, but we didn't learn because the incentives didn't change. Wall Street still rewards growth over stability. Investors still chase stories over substance, and executives still get rich from stock prices, not from building things. Enron is gone, but Enrons are still being built. For years, everyone believed, until the future arrived, and it was nothing like the projection. 20,000 people lost their jobs. Retirement accounts vanished. Billions in value evaporated. And the executives who built the illusion, some went to prison, most got out and moved on, while the employees who believed in them lost everything. Enron proved something dangerous, that you can build an empire on nothing, on projections, on models, on the willingness of people to believe what they want to believe, as long as the story is good enough, and the numbers look right, and nobody asks too many questions. But here's what Enron really proved. The system rewards illusion until it doesn't. And when the IOWA illusion collapses, it's never the architects who pay the price. It's everyone else. Enron wasn't the collapse. It was the blueprint, a way to turn storytelling into market value and doubt into a career-ending mistake. The company is gone, but the machine that created it is still running, in different forms, with different names, but the same logic. Sell the future, make it complex, reward belief, punish doubt. And when it collapses, call it an anomaly. Then start again, because the market has a short memory, and there's always someone willing to believe. In the next innovation, the next revolution, the next company that promises to change everything, as long as you don't ask how. Subscribe to History's Wealth, where we expose the illusions that built empires and the systems that still profit from them. Because in the end, history doesn't repeat itself. It teaches, and those who listen survive.